to announce
Well,
anything?
yeah, she's already.
She's going to
Oh,
mention
she's
her,
already-
her
okay.
owl thing is not
Okay.
going to
Probably not
go
gonna
this
happen.
weekend.
Okay, now I know
I
which
forgot,
one you're
remind me
sitting
to tell her.
All right, why don't we go ahead and get started here. Welcome everyone. I'm Mark Nolan, Vice President of Wichita Audubon Society. And just a couple announcements before we get going here. Next month's meeting on February 17th, we're going to learn about managing landscapes with grassland birds in mind from Evelyn Trumbo, a member of Wichita Audubon Society Board. How's everyone enjoying the warm weather today? I guess get ready. As far as field trips that we have, things coming up, we have our regular second Saturday bird walk here at the Great Plains Nature Center, 8 a.m. It looks like the next one of those will be Saturday, February 14th. So you can come out and express your love for birds with us there. And we also have a field trip in early February. Before that, on February 7th, a tour of the Sutton Avian Research Center in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. We had a speaker come out last year to talk about their masked bobwhite breeding program, so we're going to tour their facility there. Bob, anything else to say about that one? You're leading that.
Yeah, the information is on the Audubon Society website, and the starting time, we'll just meet at the location, at the Sutton Avian Center. And so if you want to get together with other people and carpool, you're welcome to do that. It's not close, it's an interesting facility. And
About 2.5 hours away. Or
yeah,
3.
something like that. So I'm sure that will limit attendance some, but if you're going, does anybody here, how many think they are going to go to that? Okay, so there'll be several. Okay.
And did anybody else have any other announcements? I'm going to have Eden talk to us in just a second, but anything else? Eden Johnson, Chaplain Nature Center Director.
So I was just going to give a couple announcements about upcoming events. So we're supposed to be doing an owl program this weekend. I'm going to guess that that's probably not going to happen. Judging by the temperatures and the snow, we want to keep everybody safe. A lot of families and people travel, and it just, right now it's not looking good, especially on the border. We're supposed to get the brunt of it. So just to give you a heads up, I'm probably going to make an announcement on Facebook tomorrow that we will have to cancel that, unfortunately. However, coming up in February 21st, I am doing a eagle program, and then we'll go and do a hike down to the river to look for eagles. I've been pretty lucky that they've been pretty consistent down there. We've had 2 adults and a juvenile that I see several times a week on the river. I've almost got them timed because I spend so much time down there. So we're going to do that, and coming back from that, we're going to come back to the visitor center, and we're actually going to build chickadee birdhouses. That'll start at noon. I did request RSVPs on that, but I still have, I think we have around 20 left that have not been claimed. If you guys have not RSVP'd and want to come, we would love to have you. So just shoot me a message or call the Nature Center, and we can get you signed up. And I think that's it. Yeah. Thank you.
Eden.
Yeah.
All right. So for tonight's program, we have Tom Ewert and Rod Wedel talking to us about their trip to Colombia last summer. And I'd like to thank them for doing this. I sometimes rely on our own members and our board members, current and former, to talk about their adventures. Both Tom and Rod are well-traveled around the world, have visited South America numerous times from the photographs that I've seen. And just a little bit about them. Both have been on the board of Wichita Audubon Society for a number of years. Tom is currently the field trip chair and helping plan some of our field trips for this season. Tom is also on the board of Audubon of Kansas and on the Wichita Parks Board. And in his spare time, I know that Rod likes to fish in addition to bird. So let's welcome Tom and Rod. And I don't know who's going to take the lead here, but glad to have you all.
going to start with just a little introduction, and Rod is going to do all the photos, because I've got a few videos, we have a few photos we've taken from other places, but just a little bit of background. We were in Colombia for about 2 weeks. There are 1,950 birds in Colombia, and we saw about 268, 270, something like that. So just a very few that we saw. Like I said, we were there about 12 days. We flew into Cali and flew out of Medellin, which are two of the larger cities. This used to be part of the coca region, but now it's all coffee. And about 10 years ago, they had a peace plan. It's a great country. It's beautiful. The roads are fantastic. The cities are big, popular. It's a great place to visit. You'll see here from what Rod has, we made 39 lists during the 12 days we were there, which means different hot spots, different places that we visited. We stayed at 9 different lodges or hotels. We ended with a coffee farm visit. So I'll turn it over to Rod and let him show his pictures.
Well, I was hoping it would be bigger. Go full screen. Is there a Wi-Fi, Patty?
There is.
I may need it. Sorry, folks.
I think it's just,
It's just guest. Yeah, you don't need a password or anything.
Oh, it's trying to connect.
But you have to go to the Wi-Fi and.
So this is not from our trip to Colombia. This leopard is from the Botswana trip last year. But it's a very nice photo.
Kansas Open. That's what you want.
Thank you. Okay. So, one of the reasons Colombia is so diverse in their species is the Andes mountain range divides into 3 different ranges. I think we were never on the east range right there, but Cali is down here and Medellin is up there, so we traversed back and forth between the valleys and the east or the west and middle ranges of the trip or of the Andes. I know.
He's working on it.
I had that turned off.
I think this one's either just automatic or not, but there's another one.
Okay. Let me go back. Part of the reason Colombia is so diverse in their species of animals and birds is that the Andes is divided into 3 different ranges. We never really got into the east range of the Andes. We were in the valley between east and central range, and we were back and forth between the west range and the central range. And you can see that there's a lot of endangered species with flora and fauna, but it's not good. We'll figure it out. These are the areas that we visited and made checklists from. We started down in Cali, like I said, and worked our way back and forth up to Medellin. This is our group. They had a restaurant kind of at the top of a mountain area. It was chilly, as you can tell. Our guide was Alejandro, and his, I believe, wife now, Lena, and our vehicle driver. And this was our local guide in this area. Tom and I were we were the outlying people. Most everybody else was from Texas. This is kind of the view of what the country is like. Tanagers, there's 88 different species in Colombia. We didn't see them all. They're all labeled. They're not Bob Gress quality. They do come to, most of them are being fed. They come to, bananas is a big food source for them.
A lot of the lodges had feeders or sticks set up so that photographers could sit there and take pictures right by the bananas or the hummingbird feeders.
Another reason people like to come to Colombia for the hummingbirds. They have between 165, 170 species of hummingbirds. Once again, we didn't see them all. This one is endemic to a national park at high altitude. One of the guys had a smartwatch with altitude on it, and he was saying that we were up around 13,800. First time we saw it was very cloudy coming in. We went back up the next morning and it was still clouds coming in a little bit, and it was far away, kind of in a rainy situation. We started hiking down the road and Alejandro pointed it out that it was fairly close, feeding on these flowers. And I don't know what the flower was, but this is main source. They're often found on these flowers. We have a couple of videos I'm going to this one, try to follow that one. It was hard to do. I'll show a picture here. The bill on this one's as long as the body. Just doesn't look like it from the angle. These are very plentiful. This one was taken actually by our guide. As was that one. That was the one that we tried to follow at the feeder. We had about 6 different antpittas. They're all very shy. The local guide in each of the areas we were at would put little mealworms out and call them in by name, and they would come out and grab a mealworm and sometimes scoot back in real quick into the brushy areas. Sometimes they stayed out. This was everybody's favorite. This one actually, our local guide would have people come up and hold their hand out with a mealworm in it, and he would call to this antpitta and he would come snatch it out of their hands. This was Tom's photo. That one, Bob? These were very plentiful too.
This one had been trained at a restaurant where we stopped that it would come to mealworms that the guide put out on a little wire.
What did we do with it? We didn't transfer that one. Tom had a video of this thing coming down and eating. He'd put the mealworm up on a wire and call for it, and it would swoop down and grab the mealworm off of the wire. Red crowned looks very much like our red-bellied. In fact, it's got reddish on the belly that you can't see very well, just like what we have here. These are all over up on the mountainside where we saw the buffy helmet crest. This is one of the lodges where we stayed. A lot of the lodges that we were at, 180-year-old farmhouses that they've turned and remodeled and turned into eco lodges for birders to come and stay at. Okay, now we'll see if we can. At the Tinamou Lodge where we had stayed at, that was the one spot that we could get those. This is when we got back up out of the valley area where we saw one of the antpittas. We had a fairly steep hike up and down. This was in Hardin, the big cathedral in the town square, and we ate here twice. The second night, in that window, all of a sudden, someone noticed there was a barn owl up there. And then there were people sitting behind us or next to us, and I think they came from the States to begin with, but he'd been down there about 7 years and had never seen one. So we told him where they were at, where it was at. This is what the high mountains look like. And breakfast up high. And a lot of our food was on wood fire stoves. One place, I think this one is also wood fired. But the other place that we were at in Tinamou Lodge had a big metal plate over with the fire going underneath of it, and that's where they cooked most of their stuff. It was very good. An interesting plant. Grew under in the understory next to, not very high off the ground. And there was a place in Ardeen that they had the cock of the rock birds there, and this one flew in, 10 feet away, or less, or maybe a little more. This was also in that area, but much farther away. About the same size as our orioles, maybe just a little bit bigger. These are fairly rare. We took a little hike. It was being fed mealworms to get it to come into the open. The last few pictures were also at an area where they were being fed in mealworms for one of the antpittas. Several different species came in. One of the first places we had gone, this hummingbird was flying in and out of the kitchen area and landed on top of Tom Willard. Let's see. What's next? No, we're gonna. Am I gonna show? Why doesn't it show Tom? Didn't want to embarrass me. Well, that's over. We will. Alright, it's not coming up. It was a picture of Tom napping. Had his camera sitting there on the table and had a masked flower piercer sitting there chattering away and pecking at the back of the camera because he was seeing his reflection. And this is speckled parrot. It's an important bird. Happened to be Tom's 3,000th bird that he had seen.
It's not that important of a bird, but it was a landmark.
And that's the end of my pictures. Is there any questions?
With so many birds, how do people know when some of them are becoming extinct?
These are guides that we had do know a lot about what's in an area, and I think they can probably tell, you know, when populations are going down. I don't know that there's anything said that they will know for sure, other than kind of like here, you know, with Christmas bird counts and other things, people have a trend of populations on the decrease or increase, but mostly decrease. So.
We were mostly at national parks and lodges, eco lodges, places where there was a lot of tourists and a lot of guides who would come there. But we drove through areas which had been deforested. So a good question is, how do we know what was previously there where there were lots of trees? There's a lot of agricultural land, there's a lot of coffee plantations, which are just coffee, shade grown or not shade grown. So there was a lot of agriculture grown in the area, plus the mountains. Other questions?
What were you thinking about?
I was taking a nap. Learning is hard work.
What's one of the rarest species you guys seen out there?
For me, it was probably the cock of the rock. That's a hard bird to see. And at this place, Jardine, there's a garden where it's a lek. So cock of the rocks are lekking birds. The males come and display year round. Sometimes it's more breeding season. This was off breeding season, so they were just sort of hopping around. But we probably saw, I don't know, 8 or 10 cock of the rocks there. The females are much drabber, much more, you know, ordinary looking, but the males always come to these places. And this first time I ever saw one of those was in Ecuador, and it was probably, I don't know, 300 yards away, something like that. And you could see orange spots, but you couldn't really see that. Where these, like Rod said, 8-10 feet away, they're flying around.
As far as rarity though, your Buffy helmet crest was rarer.
The Buffy helmet crest is that's a very restricted habitat way up in the mountains there, top of the mountain.
Were the cock of the rock vocalizing while you were there?
Yes, some.
What was your favorite?
I was going to say the Buffy helmet crest partially is because it is endemic to a very small area of Colombia. It's in a national park that has a active volcano in it. It wasn't spewing anything when we were there. But that national park is the only place that you'll find the Buffy helmet crest. So it's not a glorious looking bird, although its throat is purplish if it's turned correctly, which it never was for us. Yes, Mark.
So there was that helmet crest and maybe the cock of the rock. Were there a lot of specific species you had to go to certain places for? Or did you just kind of go to an area and you sample everything that's around?
So there were the 3 mountain ranges. The Andes come up and then they divide into 3 different ranges. And each range has a different aspect or different set of birds. Elevation wise and just the way they're separated. So we didn't visit the eastern range. They made a pre-trip that a few people went on. Otherwise, you go to a set of feeders and you've got these 5 or 6 standard hummingbirds, which are found all across the country. The same with the tanagers that you always see. And then there's going to be one unique antpitta or one unique tanager, some mountain tanager or something else, which is coming to that. That's why that's their kind of claim to fame. And so different lodges have different things like that. But it is, different areas have different species. That's one reason why there's so many species in the country.
Yes, Bob?
What was your impression of the standard of living and the safety in Colombia?
I never felt like we were in any harm's way. Felt very safe. What's kind of surprised me was how clean they kept the country. I mean, because, you know, we had just been in Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic with trash everywhere along the road, open spots where they just dumped everything. Colombia was clean.
The highways were probably better or as good as ours. Standard of living, and we interacted with people at the lodges, with our guides, with the driver. They all middle class for whatever they have. We didn't really see, we saw some farmers, some farm areas, which, you know, they couple cows and whatever, but I have no idea, you know, how they get by or what their living wages are or anything like that.
A lot of roadside fruit stands everywhere. But the pineapple was super good. Yeah.
How many birds did you actually see out in the wild as opposed to on feeders? Was it sort of 50-50? You know,
Probably not 50-50.
Yeah, most
I
of
mean,
the
we-
birds were at a lodge or at a stakeout where the antpittas was, or where they had, you know, a trail that we walked down, and wasn't paved, but it was clearly, you know, regularly trafficked by birders and guides and that sort of thing. So we weren't really out in the wild. We were always in a national park or an area where there was. But it's like birding anywhere. The owl was a stakeout. They knew where the owls. There was a couple of them that roosted in that area. A few other things like that, which we stumbled on a few things that he hadn't expected or that most people didn't see. But
So it sounds like the birds that you saw were mainly concentrated in the national parks, and that was mainly the areas that you were in anyway.
and the eco lodges that were there,
Yeah.
and they had the feeders set up, the banana feeders and the hummingbird feeders.
How did you find out about this?
So, in this picture, the guy in the hat is Tom Willard. He lives in Dallas, and next to him on his left is Kelly Walker. And I've been on bird trips with them. They came to Audubon, Kansas Hutton Ranch. They were at the first Lectrex, and so I became friends with both of them. And they organized a trip to Minnesota the first time we went up there 3 years ago. They were on our last Ecuador trip, and so Kelly was just calling her friends. She wanted 10 people, and she emailed and said, "You want to go to Colombia? It's a good trip. It's a good price." And so she organized it. But she had been on a trip to Brazil with Alejo, who is actually, he's Colombian, but he was the leader on a trip to Brazil. So she knew the guide, and we knew her, so it worked out. He builds his company as Tanager Photo Tours, which is probably an accurate description because it's mostly for people who want to sit at feeders, at watches, and take photos of the birds that come in. It wasn't a high pressure with lots of walking, hiking, long days. We spent, we'd go for a walk, we'd go see something, come back to the lodge. It'd be an hour before lunch, so we'd sit at the feeder. I'd take a nap. And people would take pictures of the hummingbirds coming and going.
You
Carolyn?
said the food was good, what type of things, and was it different at each of the places, the different types of foods at the different places?
A lot of fried plantains,
Rice and beans.
rice and beans,
Fish.
sausages that they fried up.
These little pancake things, what were those called? Like a corn pancake. Not a tortilla, but thicker.
Beverages, did they have beers?
Of course.
Beer,
Don't
soft
ask
drinks,
me.
waters.
You're looking at Tom, I know.
That was pointed.
Yeah, of course.
You have to try the local beers.
Yeah. I don't remember any of the names.
You did have photos of the kingbird.
Right. But it was surprising. We talked with the guide and with the driver some about how the reputation of Colombia used to be when there was coca, when it was dangerous, and he said that's changed. The peace treaty came into effect. There's areas still which are affected, but it's mostly like the Venezuela border, the northern mountains, the Sierra Madre or something like that, which is another place, lots of endemics there. It would be a great place to go. I wouldn't go probably again with Alejandro because he's one of those that just sits and looks at birds as they come to the feeder, but there's other guys around there. But lots of coffee. I mean, I brought back probably 4 or 5 pounds of coffee. Some I got at the supermarket we stopped at, some at the coffee farm we stopped at. And then in the airport lounge, I see I've got room for another pound of coffee, so throw that in.
The government is really trying very hard to change the perception of Colombia and has been working really diligent to get that perception of being a drug country to go away. And Alejandro's basically said, yes, the Venezuela border is kind of off limits. He said it's a very, very good birding area. And the Pacific Ocean. Partially is because Pacific Ocean is where some of the drugs that are going out of Colombia go by boat off the Pacific coast. Off the Pacific coast, sorry. But they are, I mean, like I said, it's very, very clean.
Did they talk about education for the children?
No.
There are no children. I don't remember seeing any children.
No children, so.
Yeah, there were schools I remember driving by, but we didn't really talk about that. Both Alejandro and Lena are college graduates, so I know that much. Well, thank you for coming. I believe there's going to be some refreshments in the classroom back there.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks, Rod. All right, good to see everybody. Hope to see some of y'all again, or all of y'all again next month.